Hey there. I wanted to share with you a recent experience that I had. I had a 24-hour live podcast marathon, really, live episode recording on that ended on Saturday. It started at noon Friday and it ended on noon Saturday. And a lot of you already know about it, but I wanted to just share what some of the experience was like. I mean, it was an awesome experience, but it was also daunting, if that's the right word. It was more than a notion to put on. And when anybody would ask me why I wanted to do this, I would share that I was inspired by Cory Booker when he was standing up and doing his 24 hours of talking in Congress. And I earlier this year, and I thought, I really like that. I'm inspired by this. I like endurance challenges. What could I do? And I thought, I'm going to do a 24-hour live podcast. And also, something I hadn't mentioned is I also love old movies, classic TV shows. And the Dick Van Dyke Show, Dick Van Dyke was on the radio in one of the shows for 24 hours. In one of the episodes, he's on the radio for 24 hours, and it's so good. And I actually own 2 seasons of the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I love that episode. And so it always stays with me whenever I think of my favorite episodes. So also, I had just so much support that was so heartening. I knew that if I was going to do this, one, I wanted to have guests on throughout most of the time. And two, I wanted to have friends here, if I could, here in my space, here in my home, to just give me that energy. And I did. Friends were in the other room and they were laughing and talking. And it was just such a big help. One of my friends stayed and spent the night, and another one, was here at least until midnight. And then, I had a group of people who were just here throughout, whether they kicked off the episode with me, which I had a few friends here kicking everything off with me, and then other friends who would come and they would hop on the mic, or they might give me a little break if I wanted to take out my dog Shiloh, or if I just needed to walk around for a second or run to the bathroom. They would just give me a quick break. And it was just so awesome. And then I had commenters who were really also keeping me going throughout the whole time. That was so helpful because there were times when I was like, oh my God, how am I going to finish this? How am I going to get through this? And especially during the overnight hours, that was rough. The overnight hours were definitely rough. I had um, guests on throughout, like I said. One of my friends, he came on about 10:30 on Friday night, and then he came back on at 3 a.m. And then I had um, also my best friend, excuse me, my best friend, she came on at 2 a.m. She set her clock and she got up and she came on at 2 a.m. So she was on from 2 to 3, and then he was on from 3 to 4 a.m. And then I had hour gap before my next guest, who was in the UK, and it was 5 a.m. here. And so during that hour gap, I was reading some prayers that I had written in my journal, and the commenters were responding and just keeping me going. They would let me know if it resonated, or they had some thought about it, and where did I get this prayer from, or anything. It was just keeping me going. It was really, really helpful. And of course, that last hour, that last hour was something for me. Oh my gosh. And the commenters were just acting as if I was running a race, like in an actual marathon. They were just like, you got this, keep it up. One of my friends, Stephanie, was like, she's leaving it all on the field. And I said, yes, yes, I am leaving it all on the field. And that really helped because I wanted that last hour to just be solo. That's the way I planned it. But then I was struggling so much. I felt like, gosh, I should have had another guest because my last guest was from 10 to 11. And then I thought I should have had another guest to keep me company during this last hour. So, me, and you know what else was going on? So, I was so, my head was just so tired. And I remember I was taken, I had to walk away. I stepped away at one point to take Shiloh out. And coming up was going to be my 10 a.m. guest. And when I was taking Shiloh out, I was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to talk about in that last hour. Like, you know, how when you're fresh in the morning or, whatever time during the day and you have thoughts that are circulating in your mind and, that will, or seed will come into your mind that will help you think of something. Well, my brain was just so like, oh, that I knew I didn't know what I was gonna be talking about during that last hour. So, during that last hour, I don't know what I talked about. I was just saying saying different things, saying different things. And my commenters wanted me to comment on what was coming up because they knew that I have another podcast series that, my friend Stephanie and I are gonna be launching called Shifting into Peace. And so they were trying to prompt me to mention, oh, I have this new podcast series that's coming up. And so they were asking me, like, what's coming up next? What are you doing next? And I just was completely misunderstanding the question that they were asking me. I was just so out of it. And also, uh, during some of the conversations that I was having, I was noticing that this film, at least from me looking out, this white film was coming over my vision. And I was like, "Oh my god." And I feel like it was happening when I was really in the final stretch hours, and I thought, "Oh my god, am I gonna be able to finish this?" Because it was almost like somebody poured milk on my face, on my in my eyes or something. And I would rub my eyes a little, and it would not clear up. And then a few seconds later, after I'm rubbing my eyes, it would clear up. And it happened twice, and I thought maybe it's from the light on the screen. I don't know, but that was wild. Or when I would get up, like I said, sometimes I might have to get up to just walk around for a minute to, um, shake myself awake. And a couple of times when I got up, I was dizzy, and it was just something. And I have to admit that I was already tired when I started the podcast, the 24 Live, because just the ramp up, I'm anxious. I want it to go well. So I'm not really sleeping, that great. And I'm trying to make sure that, I have things right, technically. And so I really didn't have much sleep the 2 nights before, but it was still just amazing at the same time, with all of this. It was amazing. The guests who were supporting me in coming on and to talk about all these amazing things from across the world, from here in Atlanta, here in my home, here in Atlanta, across the US, Virginia, Colorado. I can't even remember, the all the cities. And then we go out the country and we've got Canada and Thailand and the UK and Portugal. I mean, it was just awesome. Very, very, very nice. And so that was great. And I just, this is a spiritual based podcast, and just knowing that, God had me was was great. I didn't have to feel like I was falling down a rabbit hole. And so a couple of things I didn't mention is that, one, this podcast was in honor uh, of my mom. It was her late birthday on Friday the 19th when I launched it. So I did it. I did it all in honor of her, in dedication of her, and also it was a fundraiser to help raise money for this organization, a nonprofit, Georgia Appleseed Center for Law and Justice, and they do a lot. They do a lot around homelessness and children, and helping to advocate for them and change laws so they can have safe and secure housing. Uh, they also do a lot around fair and equal justice for them in schools, for children who are underserved in schools, because a lot of times, because of what they're dealing with, they may be misunderstood because they're troubled, they're stressed. Some of them are in trauma. And so in school, they may not react or behave in a way that the teachers and administrators think is okay, is should be, deemed as normal. And that may cause some problems. And so this organization does a lot in advocacy for children around this. And so throughout the podcast, I am mentioning the nonprofit. The executive director was on, and I had previously done a podcast recording with him. And so he also came on the podcast and talked along with his wife, who also uh, leads another nonprofit that uh, advocates and helps moms who have children who were born while they were incarcerated. So I was speaking about this throughout, and I want to just show you their Georgia Appleseed. In case you're interested in this organization, I would love for you to go and visit this website. And they have a donate button where you can donate directly to the website. We raised actually $600. And of course, I would have wanted it to be more, but I am so appreciative of everyone who donated, whether it was $10, whether it was $50, $100, whatever people had to donate, it was and is greatly appreciated. And people can still donate. And the other thing that we did around this effort was raise awareness of the organization. So it was about fundraising, but it was also about just spreading the awareness of this organization and what they do, and the plight of so many people out here around housing. So I also wrote a story about it for one of the media outlets that I write for, Digital News Service Supporter Report. So I have a story on this whole thing in there. But this was just such a wonderful endeavor. And as I said, there were people who were holding me up, keeping me buoyed. And one of them was my friend who I mentioned came on at 3 a.m. And towards the end, he wanted to do a prayer, an 11-minute prayer, and he wanted us to bounce back and forth. He would say, it could be a whole prayer, it could be one line, and he would say it, and then I would say it, and he would say it. And I was really resistant to it because my brain was just what it was. And I told him, in the beginning, I said, I don't know that I'm going to even remember lines, to prayers. And he was like, that's okay. It'll be fine. And so we did this prayer meditation, and I did go blank a couple of times as I was trying to think of the rest of lines to a prayer, but it was really what I needed in the end. I thought, wow, this is. I told him, this was needed. I needed this, and didn't even know it. And he said that he needed it too. So there was just so much. Like I said, we had a lot of conversations on so many different topics. One of them, I had three fathers on who was discussing father daughter bonds, the relationships with their daughters. Uh, in other conversations, we talked about life, talked about struggles, relationships. It was just a really good time, and I'm really grateful. Now, if I do this again, I need to do this in a studio with a videographer, somebody on the camera, and I have some support. But I would definitely be open to doing it again. I love the idea of doing something where it's being done on behalf of uh, a cause. So that was great. So I just wanted to share some of what took place, and I appreciate, the people who are happy for me that I got through it and are telling me that they enjoyed it and that it was a good job. And that is really, really what I was hoping for. So that is what's up. And, here on Let's Start Healing, we say we have more in common than we think. And what we have in common can change the world. And what we have in common is love, actual love, real love, love. That's what we have in common, real love. So what we have in common can change the world. And we do have more in common than we think. So I'll see you soon, because I have a lot that I'm going to be rolling out from the segments of this 24-hour live. You can go to my YouTube page, and you can see a lot of it already. You can see it there. Adrian M. Murchison is my YouTube page, but you can also Google Let's Start Healing, and it will come up if you're not already a subscriber. One thing I didn't say hardly, if at all, was subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Please subscribe. Okay, so see you soon. Thank you so much. Let's start healing.